Hey, what's up guys, Rod Facts here. Today I'll show you a science fiction film, Pacific Rim. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. In the bottom of the ocean an interdimension breach open, and a monster called kaijus start coming out from the opening continuously. Humanity tried everything to destroy the monster, however our conventional weapons are not effective against creatures this size, for the survival of the human race. The countries set aside their differences, and build gigantic machines called Jaegers to combat the kaijus. The Jaegers put too much tension on a single pilot, so a two-pilot system was implemented. Humanity starts winning against the kaijus, and the Jaeger pilots turn to heroes. Our main character Raleigh, and his brother Yancey are being deployed against the Category 3 kaiju called Knife Head. They walk towards the head of the Jaeger, and begins putting on their specialized equipment suit. The hatches unlock, and they are dropped on top of a massive mechanical body in assembly. Their Jaeger is called Gypsy Danger, and the massive machine towers over everything around it while being brought to the docking bay. The brothers are able to pilot the Jaeger, because of their unique bond which allows them to drift compatible. It means a neural link is able to connect the two through their memories, and allow them to control the Jaeger together. Marshal Stacker instructs the brothers to stay put, and guard the base. However, they decided to disobey his orders, and save the 10 people still outside the storm. The massive kaiju jump out of the ocean, and towers over the fishing boat full of people. When the monster is about to attack, Gypsy rises from beneath the waves as well, and carries the boat away from the danger just in time. The brothers throw furious of punches at the kaiju, and knock it down with a powerful slam to the head. The monster rushes towards the Jaeger, however Gypsy grabs onto its head, and prepares to use the plasma cannon on the other hand. They fire at the kaiju, and the explosion sends the kaiju flying backwards into the ocean. However, the marshal tells the brothers that they are still picking up the monster's signal, and the kaiju jumps out of the water taking out one of the Gypsy's arms. The monster grabs onto the Jaeger's head, and rips off half of it, killing Yancey in the process. The main character is forced to pilot alone, and struggles to fire the plasma cannon while Knife Head continues dismantling the robot. Raleigh managed to shoot a large blast at the kaiju, and both their signals disappear as a result. Luckily Raleigh survives, and pilots the Jaeger to shore. He crashed lands on the beach north of the headquarters, and gets rescued by a man with his grandson. 5 years later the United Nations is abandoning the Jaeger program, as the kaijus are destroying the machines faster than humanity can rebuild them. The world leaders decide to invest in building walls around the major cities, as a better option against the monsters. Despite the setbacks, the higher-ups Marshal Stacker refuses to give up on the program that he's supposed to lead at the same time. Raleigh has given up piloting the Jaegers, and survives by working as a builder for the coastal. Their efforts are questioned by the workers, when they see another wall being destroyed by a kaiju with ours. Luckily the city was saved by Eureka Striker of the newest Jaegers build in Australia would destroy the kaiju with missile attacks. The people beg the pilots to stay. However, they are moving to Hong Kong just like the rest of Jaegers. A helicopter down, as Raleigh heads to outside of the building. He is surprised to see that the marshal has come to him personally, and wants him to come back. As a pilot again Raleigh refuses to return, as his memories of his brother still haunt him every moment. However, the marshal managed to convince him to come back by asking, where he rather die, building a wall or inside a Jaeger. They arrive at Hong Kong and Raleigh meets Mako, the marshal's adopted daughter, who apparently has a very low opinion on the Raleigh. Stacker shows Raleigh the other Jaegers. Crimson Typhoon from China was piloted by the triples known for their thundercloud formation, and B. Herno Alpha, one of the most brutal machine from Russia. They also meet the pilots for Eureka Striker, Chuck, and his father Hansen with the amazing record of 11 kills. The marshal explains that their plan is to install a nuclear weapon on Eureka, and carry it to the breach guarded by the other Jaegers. They will detonate the bomb inside the portal in order to close it permanently. The team scientists responsible to their mission, Herman, a physicist, and Newton, a kaiju biologist. Herman explains that the kaijus will appear faster and faster, and they will increase their numbers in the future until humanity is extinct. He thinks that the increased traffic in the breach will allow it to remain open long enough for a nuclear weapon to be dropped in, and explodes. Then the portal will close permanently. Newton disagrees, and thinks that they do not have enough information about the monsters yet. He thinks that the kaijus are clones, as their DNA are exactly the same. The biologist thinks that they should try to use the mind drift technology of the Jaegers to connect with a kaiju rim in order to understand the enemy more. Stacker chooses Herman's plan over Newton's, as he needs immediate solutions rather than something that sounds a science fiction. Mako takes the main character to his room and Relay inquires about her opinion on his performance. The woman is critical about the main character's decision-making abilities, as she thinks that Raleigh take too many risks. He agrees with her while the next day Relay begins the selection process for the co-pilot, however he defeats every single one of the candidates with ease. He sees Mako body language showing her criticalness towards his performance, and dares the marshal to allow his brightest student inside the ring. Stacker hesitates, however he allows Mako to fight, after being pushed repeatedly by Relay. They start to fight each other, and their movements become synchronized, as they are evenly matched. The marshal stop the combat, after several rounds, and Relay become convinced that Mako is the perfect co-pilot for him. Nonetheless, Stacker refuses to allow her to be in real combat, and everyone walks away in disappointment. At the meantime, Newton sets up his laboratory equipment against the orders from the marshal, and begins connecting his mind with the kaiju's frontal lobe. He quickly sees a vision of the kaiju's base, and realizes that they are grown by aliens just like he suspected. He nearly kills himself through the process. However, Herman manages to save him just in time. After much consideration, the marshal decided to pay Mako a visit, and keep the promise he made to Get by allowing her to pilot the Jaeger. Relay is surprised to see Mako enter into the machine, and happy that he is finally getting a worthy co-pilot. The two starts the drifting process, and the memories become interconnected. Stacker gets a news from Herman that Newton has successfully drifted with the kaiju's brains, and rushes over to see the results. The biologist tells him that the kaijus are actually weapons used by race of aliens that conquers planets, and use up its resources. Stacker wants Newton to do it again. However, he requires another brain from the monsters. The marshal gives them the contact for Hannibal Chow, a black marked Jaegers, and Mako also starts seeing her memories. Apparently her parents were killed by one of the kaijus when she was little, and she became terrified of the monsters. Relay tries to snap her out of the memories, however emotional connection are too strong, and she starts defending her illusions by triggering the Jaeger's plasma cannon. The crew manages to disengage the weapon system, and save the facility from complete destruction. Relay rushes towards Mako, as she regains her consciousness from her nightmare. At the same time, Newton manages to find Hannibal in the black market. The man becomes furious when he learns that the doctor drifted with the kaiju's brain. The connection is two-way street, which means that the aliens know more about the human as well, and they will likely come looking for Newton back in the headquarters. They receive a lot of seismic activities indicating that there will be a double event occurring with Category 4 kaijus codenamed Odachi, and Leatherback Marshal tells Cherno Alpha and Crimson Typhoon to engage the monster while Eureka Striker stays back to defend the harbor. He orders Relay, and makes to stay put for the mission. They head towards the ocean, and the helicopters drop them in front of the coastline, while Eureka's Striker follows closely behind. The Crimson Typhoon starts clock. The Crimson Typhoon starts the Jaeger flying into the Water Typhoon Thundercloud formation. Water Typhoon recovers quickly, and begins using their Thundercloud formation. They manage to land multiple strikes on the creature. However, their blades are stopped by Odachi, as it overpower the Jaeger. Typhoon quickly jumps upwards, and using its amazing agility to flip the kaiju in the air, and throwing it into the ocean. Alpha charges in, and continues to pummel the monster by punching its head. Odachi sees opening, and knocks Cherno Alpha into the ocean. It then continues to attack Typhoon with the tail, and eventually decapitates the Jaeger's head, killing the pilots inside seeing their teammates destroyed. The Russian begin charging at the monster, however the Odachi spits out acid from its mouth, which paralyzes the robot. The Australian team rushes towards the battlefield, and tries to save their teammates, however Leatherback jump out from the ocean, and begins attacking Cherno Alpha. As well, Odachi goes to face the Australian, however gets conked down right away, and continues to gets pummeled by a barrage of punches followed by a devastating uppercut. Journal Alpha gets peshed inside the ocean, and the kaiju destroys its pilots by causing it to explode from the inside. Eureka Striker grabs the monster, and lifts it into the air. The Jaeger throws the kaijus in the water, and prepares to finish it by launching its missiles. Leatherback senses the attack, and release a massive pulse of EMP that disable the Jaeger, and the electronics in the city with no other choice. Stacker allows Relay and Make on the battlefield as their Jaeger has a nuclear reactor, and are not affected by the attack. At the same time Newton runs away towards the closest shelter, as Odachi comes looking for him after he drifted with their kind, destroying buildings, and causing chaos in the city. Henson decided to unhook himself from the machine, however gets thrown to the walls, when the kaijus punches the Jaeger, damaging his arm in the process. He decides with his son to protect the city, by the people. Sometime by distracting kaijus with the flare gun, however manages to annoy the monster which turns to attack them. They are saved when Gypsy Danger appears from behind, and catches the kaiju's attention. Leatherback charges towards the Jaeger, however Gypsy manages to maneuver behind, and destroy its weapon. This angers the monster which prompts it to throw them onto shore. Gypsy managed to land without damage, and charges towards Leatherback hitting it with a devastating strike. They continue to punch the kaiju, and uses their elbow rocket to send the kaiju stumbling backwards. The monster regains his balance, and charges at the Jaeger, however Gypsy manages to hold it back. They prepare the plasma cannon, and shoots at the kaiju continuously until its arm falls off, and the monster, become unconscious from the attack. Gypsy throws the body on the floor, and start heading towards the trails of destruction hunting the other kaiju. Before Odachi can be devoured, the doctor it notices a presence approaching from behind, and turns around only to see Gypsy Danger walking towards it dragging a cargo ship. Relay and Mako uses the boat as a sword, and begins striking the kaiju with several attacks. The kaiju eventually fights back and throws away the boat. They shoot acid at the Jaeger, however they manage to evade the attack just in time. Gypsy grabs the kaiju's tongue trying to disable its weapons. Mako destroys the kaiju's tail by releasing a coolant on it, and breaking into pieces. They then proceed to rip out the kaiju's tongue with both hands. Surprisingly, the monster grabs onto the Jaeger, and spends its wings. The kaiju then begins flying towards the sky as it strikes the Jaeger into the building. Odachi continues to lift the Gypsy out of the atmosphere as they start to lose all the functions. Mako takes their last weapon, and proceeds to cut the creature in half with a sword. They start falling towards the earth, and manages to slow down their descent by concentrating all the energy into a blast. They crash into the ground causing a massive shockwave but emerges unharmed. Relay and Mako comes back to the camp, and everyone cheers for their victory. Meanwhile, Newton discovers that one of the dead Kaijus was pregnant, and they can use newborn kaiju's brain to enter the drift. Herman decides to help his friend with the drift in their last attempt to learn as much as they can before the team goes on their final mission. They connect with the kaiju's brain, and discovers the secrets to the breach by searching the memories. The two immediately realizes that their plan will not work, and Newton still informed the marshal. At the same time, Stacker decided to replace Hansen due to his injuries, and the pilot the Jaeger personally Chuck says goodbye to his father, as he knows that his mission might be his loss. The two remaining Jaegers drop into the ocean and begins heading towards the breach. They maneuver underwater, and soon starts to realize that the visibility is extremely poor, as they reach closer to the portal. They start seeing two kinds kaiju Scunner, and Raiju both category 4. They notice the kaijus not trying to stop them from making the jump. The two doctors rush into the command room, and tells them to stop immediately. They will not able to go through breach, because it requires the kaiju's DNA for the access. They have to trick the system by going into the portal with the monsters. Before the doctors can finish explaining, the radar picks up another signature coming out. This time a category 5 kaiju named Splatter appears. Relay and Mako tries to help their teammate, however gets attacked by Scunner right away. They manage to throw the Minster on the ground. However, the Raiju strikes from behind, and take out one of their arms. It turns around and charges at Relay and Mako, however instead of escaping they point the sword at the monster, and proceeds to cut the monster into half using its own momentum. The category 5 kaiju attacks Eureka, and pushes away from the beach. They manage to fight back, and stab the monster with both of their swords, causing it to scream in agony. Slanted yells to his fellow for help, and the monster charge out the Jaeger with blinding speed. Realizing that there's no escape, the marshal plans to use himself as a bomb to clear the way for the Gypsy Danger so that they may use their nuclear reactor to close the branch. He detonate the bomb, which causes a massive explosion, sending the water away from underneath the ocean. Gypsy braces for the impact, and begins walking towards the breach. Surprisingly, Slathering somehow survived the explosion, and plans to prevent Gypsy from reaching the portal. They jump towards the monster, and start snapping it repeatedly. Relay turns on the central reactor, and starts burning a hole through the kaiju, which surely kills it. They manage to make through the bridge, while carrying the kaiju's body. Mako slowly passes out from the lack of oxygen, however Relay puts her in the escape pod and fires it away from the aliens. He dislodges himself, and continues towards the nuclear reactor, where he manually sets the explosion to occur within 60 seconds. Relay then ejects himself in escape pod as the Jaeger continues to fall into the kaiju's base. The aliens looks at the Jaeger in confusion as the nuclear reactor approaches meltdown, and explodes, destroying everything in vicinity, and closing the breach at the same time. Both Relay and Mako survive the explosion and people celebrate their victory. The two hug each other as the military arrives to their rescue. This is Rod Facts. Peace out.